What does high score mean? New high score, is that bad? What does that mean? Should I break it?
Hello everyone and welcome to Veteran Gaming. I am Aaron. Tonight in Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite factions inside the game, and that is the Goblin faction. If you guys are looking for speed, bleed, or AoE, I can do better, don't worry. But if you're looking for any of those, the Goblin team is going to be really helpful. So we're going to discuss the whole team and squad as it is currently in the game. I'm going to talk about the ups, the downs, where you want to use them, where you don't want to use them, and hopefully answer all of your Goblin questions. If I don't, or if you like the video, whatever you want to say, throw it in the comments section down below. I always appreciate the feedback, and any helpful tips are always better for the community, so I appreciate those. All right, diving into the Goblin faction here. Let's get them pulled up. And before we talk about them real quick, one of the main strengths I already mentioned, let's pull on over here, is speed, right? So here we pull up our speed chart, our base stats here. Orphers and Goblins are currently the fastest characters in the game. And Chef Kraska is down here at what, 8? So you have 3 of the top 10 speed heroes in the game are currently on the Goblin faction. You do have, where is he? Grimp, where are you? Grimpa's down here, 153, not real fast. And obviously the Great Goblin as a large unit is definitely slower. But hey, that is still not too shabby to have 3 of the top 10 in one faction. So because they're little guys running around for the most part, they are really fast, which is great for specific raid chapters, which at the very end of the video, I'm going to talk about each raid chapter specifically and how they do. So I'm not going to foreshadow or jump into that too much. The next thing I want to talk about is how you farm the Goblin faction, because it's actually a pretty solid farming faction, bar one great big problem. I'm looking at you, Great Goblin. All right, so the Great Goblin is currently unfarmable in the game. The only way to get Great Goblin shards are through pure luck out of the bonus chests or by using gems on the main, which I actually got the Great Goblin up to 3 using gems. I don't recommend it. Hopefully the Great Goblin comes out as farmable and becomes a free-to-play friendly character at some point in the future, but unfortunately that day is not yet here. The good news is the rest of the team is really nice to farm easily and early in the game. Grimpa is guild, which is the fastest farm in the game, which is why I have him at 7 stars already. And Goblins is actually an arena farm. So you can use your arena credits to get Goblins, which is awesome because that leaves 2 out of 5 with your story mode energy, which is the most important resource in the game, essentially, other than gems, which help you buy energy. But you get what I'm saying. That's the one you really want to make sure you're using efficiently, and you only need 2 of these heroes currently until the Great Goblin comes around using that story energy. So a really nice, easy farm, which is why Grimpa and Goldburs are almost up there, and even Orphers and Chef Kraska are 6 stars already. So once the Great Goblin is farmable, I'm going to put a ton of work into the Great Goblin, and then this team is really gonna take off. So I'm just going to do a bare bones summary of all the kits and what's important and what makes the team tick. Frankly, the leadership under the Great Goblin is not like that key to the squad. Honestly, it is pretty cool though, because the more goblins that are killed, the more Goblin Fury rises, which is 5% damage and 5% focus per stack, which is cool because if you don't know it, once you kill a goblin, they all have a passive which summons a smaller, weaker goblin essentially to fight in their place. So it's not like, why does that help me? Because once they're dead, I have way fewer of them. No, you're actually going to end up with what, 8, 9, including the Great Goblin, 9 goblins overall. So that Goblin Fury is actually going to help you really push to the end that even though they're summoning a smaller, weaker unit, that unit is going to have the Goblin Fury, which is going to help out. So the other thing I mentioned that's really nice for the goblins, right? We talked about speed, now we're on to bleed. Bleed really makes this team tick, and they inflict a lot of bleed, which again helps in a certain raid chapter, which I will discuss later on the video, so don't bail on me yet. All right, so here we go. We got a chance to inflict bleed. Once you up it, you're getting an always inflict bleed, and then you're going to increase the duration, which is nice. This is also a nice little ability just because you're summoning a little goblin that's also a goblin guard. That's going to provoke, which is nice. And here's one of the other strengths of the team I mentioned. It's not a full AoE, but it is a multi-hitter. You're hitting multiple targets, and the most important thing in these games is obviously turn meter manipulation, and you're getting a slow that's going to reduce all of their speed by 30%. So those really, really, really nice. You're doing a lot of damage, and you're putting the slow, which is massive. Then, of course, you're getting a little bit of turn meter every time you're attacking bleed. So, great Goblin. The leadership, not one of the strongest leaderships in the game, but really helps with the bleed. Orphers here is the second one we'll talk about. Orphers, like a lot of the Goblins, has a pretty simple kit. But, again, on that second attack, an AoE. The other nice thing about Orphers is he has crit chance built into his kit in a couple of different places. Let's see. Yeah, you're getting deadly on the AoE, which is also increasing crit chance, which is nice for Chapter 2 of the raid, which again we'll talk about later on. But anytime you're getting crit chance, you're getting more critical strikes, you're lowering the momentum of the cave troll. So, nice damage-based hero. Goblins, though, is the cream of the crop here for the Goblin faction, just because bleed is so absolutely massive for Goldbur's kit. On the first attack here, you're inflicting bleed for 2 turns, and then once it's maxed, it's a 3-turn bleed, which is pretty sweet. And then, by the way, his second attack, all enemies get a stack of bleed for 1 turn. All enemies get hit, and you're hitting a bleed on 2 of the enemies. And if Chef Kraska is an ally, then you're getting 2 stacks of bleed. And then you can up it to, what, 3 enemies get the bleed, and then you're also increasing the bleed duration. So a really, really important second attack, but it's not even as important as the passive. Read this passive. It's kind of nuts. On turn, attack each enemy with bleed for 80% damage and inflict expose for 1 turn. So you're automatically dealing damage to anyone with bleed, which he just put out an AoE, which once it's maxed is going to have bleed for multiple turns. The Great Goblin can put on bleed. There should be bleeds pretty much everywhere all the time when this team is maxed. Oh, and then, by the way, you're also going to put on an expose, which reduces their damage, or their armor. So, it's just a really, really cool passive, really bleed-heavy kit, which, again, is a massive weakness in, say, Chapter 4 of the raid. But we'll get to that. Chef Kraska is our healer here. Pretty basic kit again, except kind of cool stuff, right? Like our basic here is going to steal a boon and give it to the Great Goblin. This is a heal on the second one. But kind of a weird curveball is we have some protection built stuff into the kit here. So you're granting protection to 2 random squad members, which you'll actually get from Grimpa also, which we'll get to in a minute. But it meshes with the passive here. Goblin squad members gain 16% lifesteal while they have protection. So you're going to get protection from Grimpa, which we're about to talk about, and from Chef Kraska, which gains lifesteal, which is really cool because AoEs are built into so many of the kits. You're doing so much damage to so many people once you have lifesteal. It really helps the sustainability of the Goblins, which is good because they're not that thick, right? They don't have that big of a health pool because once you kill them, they summon somebody else. If they had massive health pools, then this team would be completely unbeatable, which once it's maxed, it's going to do a world of attacking damage anyway, which is pretty cool. And here's Grimpa. Grimpa's probably the weakest member of the Goblin faction. His kit is a little bit lackluster, but he's gaining a chance of protection here. He's putting on weak-minded when he taunts. On his death, he has a 50% chance to grant protection to the most wounded Goblin ally, which again, Chef is going to help you get some lifesteal, which is not too bad. And then you got a Bane on the weaken on the passive, so I don't know. His kit isn't super impressive to me, but he is actually fairly thick. I mean, some of that's coming from not everybody is 7 stars, but he is. But he's all right. I mean, he's a tank. But the main hero here that's really going to make them tick, the one you're going to want to max out his abilities before everybody else is Goldbur's here. Because that bleed is what really gives the Goblin faction a benefit. In the arena, I don't know. I think they're going to be kind of a middle of the road for me, just because they are squishy and they don't have a single dispel anywhere on the team. So whatever boons or banes are being thrown at them, they really can't do that much about. And they are pretty squishy. If you have like a big AoE heavy hitter like Ironhide or something, because Grimpa just has one kind of weak taunt. The Great Goblin summons his little minion, which has a provoke. It's just, overall, they don't take damage well, which again kind of factors in the fact that they all summon somebody when they die. It would be crazy if they had massive health pools. So, I'm going to call them a mid-tier team in Arena. I think once you get some glyphs in them that make them a little bit thicker and even a little bit quicker than they already are, they're going to be a stronger team. But remember, Grimpa is one of the slower heroes on that team, so the tank that can get the taunt out is one of the slowest ones. You really want a fast tank to get that taunt out quickly to minimize that damage to make a more effective team. But we'll see kind of where they go with glyphs down the road. Last thing I want to talk about, the raids. How they do in each particular chapter. You'll have to excuse me because we got to get through a little cutscene here because we are currently in the middle of a raid. Shout out to my guild again really quickly because we are doing pretty well. We've almost beaten chapter 4, which is pretty cool. So, in chapter 1 here, they are good because they have AoEs, which can get around the tanks. They do a good amount of bleed damage, which is going to help lower the tanks, so when the bombers throw, then they're going to kill more people. And the Great Goblin has an assist call also. Oh, and by the way, the bleed guy, Goblins. Remember that passive? Everybody that has a bleed, he's going to attack. If you can get a bleed on the bomber before he gets that debuff where he evades every attack, then again, every time he takes a turn, it's going to click up a stack on the bleed. So they are pretty strong here in chapter 1, just to give you a general idea. What, you're not going to tell me my previous attempts? You're talking about a different chapter. I hate this glitch. Come on, show me chapter 1. Previous attempts. Okay, here we go. So they are hitting 300,000, and I don't know if you remember, but they're all basically level 50. And I think they're about to, once I put a little bit more into them, I think they're going to go into difficulty 3. Because like I said, they are pretty quick. The AoEs are nice at lowering everybody else's damage or health bars while hitting the bomber. So pretty strong in 1. Once they get the bleeds up and really running, they're going to do very, very well on chapter 2 here. Especially when they have the crit attack, they have assist built in, they have bleed. Right now, I have difficulty landing the bleeds because they're not level 60 and 7 stars, which is why the score is not particularly high yet. But this is one of those teams that once you get the abilities really leveled up and make them level 60, or even get focus glyphs when they come out to make those debuffs stick, they are really going to wreck this troll with bleeds in chapter 2. So, very middle of the road to low road, the way I currently have them leveled. But once you guys get that bleed stacking, they're going to absolutely crush the troll. Chapter 3 is all about speed. That's all that matters. So, as I said, they have 3 very quick members. They are very strong in chapter 3. And the nice thing is, once they die, they get another goblin up. So they actually get over 300,000 in difficulty, or in chapter 3, difficulty 3 right now. So which, I mean, my Isengard here can only get 246 because they're such a slow team, even though they're all above level 50, 7 and 6 stars. They are much more powerful of a team than the Goblins, but the Goblins do better because of that speed enhancement and because once they die, they're summoning their other Goblins. So really strong in chapter 3. And then chapter 4, they are pretty weak. They do not do a good job in chapter 4 just because there's nothing to bleed, right? They can get 100,000, but frankly, so can Isengard and Elves, and it's just not a super strong team because you can't make a Shadow and Flame Demon bleed, and bleed are the main thing that make them tick. So, in conclusion, I kind of love the Goblins. I and I think they're only going to get stronger in the future. They have great speed. They throw out a ton of bleed. They have good AoE. They are just a solid team that is really kind of fun. And I think once whatever Grand Arena or PvP mechanics come down the road, whatever game mode, I think they're going to be a lot of fun. For anybody who played Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, I think they have some definite Geonosian elements to them. As once you kill them, they just bring up another one. So we'll kind of see where that goes. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the Great Goblin become farmable. That's really going to be a game changer for this faction and for your roster if you choose to invest in the Goblins. So there it is, the complete team overview. Like I said, guys, questions, comments, concerns, just happy thoughts in the comments section down below. Appreciate everybody stopping in. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming content. And as always, guys, have fun, good luck.
So I got that going for me, which is nice.